The ship called Horizon floated above the strange planet. Through the viewing window, Taehyun watched the swirling clouds part to reveal a world of glittering surfaces. Erythea. After 3 years of space travel, they had finally arrived. Final. Checks complete. Landing team, prepare for descent, said Captain Lee over the ship speakers. Taehyun checked his equipment one last time. As the team's xenobiologist, his job was to study and understand the alien life on this new world. His hands moved quickly across his suit seals, making sure everything was secure. The landing pod would reach the surface in just 30 minutes. Nervous? Asked Jiwoo, the team's linguist. Her dark eyes showed the same mix of fear and excitement that Taehyun felt. A little, Taehyun admitted. We trained for 5 years for this moment, but nothing can really prepare you for meeting a new species. The briefing room screen showed images of the Erythi. They were unlike any life form humans had encountered before. Their bodies were made of crystal-like structures that caught and reflected light in beautiful patterns. They moved by gliding across surfaces and communicated through vibrations that humans could barely detect. Captain Lee entered the room, his face serious. Remember the mission. We are here to establish peaceful contact. The scans show the Erythi have technology, culture, and social structures. They are intelligent beings with rights. We offer friendship and knowledge exchange. Nothing more. The 6 members of the landing team nodded. Besides Taehyun and Jiwoo, there was Dr. Minho, the medical officer, Sora, the planetary scientist, Junho, the security officer, and Captain Lee himself. The landing pod shook as it entered the atmosphere. Taehyun gripped his seat tightly. Through the small window, he watched as the surface of Erythea grew closer. The entire planet seemed to shimmer and shine. Tall formations rose from the ground like trees made of glass. They reflected the light of the system's star in rainbow colors. Look at that, whispered Jiwoo. It's beautiful. When the pod landed in a clearing, the team waited while the computer checked that the air was safe to breathe. The reading showed that the atmosphere contained enough oxygen for humans, though it had a different mix of other gases than Earth. Suits on, but visors can stay open, ordered Captain Lee. Stay alert. The door of the pod opened with a soft hiss. Taehyun was the third to step onto the surface of Erythea. The ground felt solid but had a slight give to it, like walking on hard rubber. The air smelled strange, a mix of something like ozone and a sweet scent he couldn't identify. Movement at 2 o'clock, said Junho quietly, his hand resting near his stun weapon. They all turned to look. At first, Taehyun couldn't see anything. Then he noticed a shimmer in the air, like heat rising from a road on a hot day. The shimmer moved closer and gradually took shape. It was an Erythi. Up close, the alien was even more beautiful than in the images. Its body was shaped roughly like a human's, but made entirely of crystal-like material that shifted colors as it moved. Where a human would have a face, the Erythi had a cluster of smaller crystals that pulsed with inner light. Amazing, breathed Taehyun, reaching for his scanner. Jiwoo stepped forward, holding the universal translator device. The team had studied the vibration patterns of the Erythi for months, trying to understand their language. The translator was programmed with their best guesses, but this was the first real test. We come in peace, Jiwoo said, and the translator converted her words into a series of vibrations. The Erythi stopped moving. The lights within its body flashed rapidly. More Erythi appeared from between the crystal formations surrounding the landing team. Captain, said Junho tensely. We're being surrounded. Stay calm, said Captain Lee. This is normal first contact procedure. They're curious. Jiwoo continued to use the translator, sending message after message of peace and friendship. The Erythi responded with complex patterns of light and vibration that the translator struggled to understand. I think they're asking why we're here, said Jiwoo, frowning at the translator's output. Tell them we seek knowledge exchange and peaceful relations, said Captain Lee. As Jiwoo input this message, Taehyun noticed something strange. The crystal formations around them began to dim, as if absorbing light rather than reflecting it. The temperature dropped noticeably. Captain, something's wrong, Taehyun said. The environmental readings are changing rapidly. Before Captain Lee could respond, one of the Arethi moved forward quickly. It raised what seemed like an arm, and the crystal formations around them suddenly glowed bright red. The translator in Jiwoo's hand sparked and shut down. "The translator is fried," she said, her voice rising in panic. "Some kind of energy pulse." "Defensive positions," ordered Captain Lee. "No weapons unless I give the order." The Arethi began to move in a circular pattern around the humans. The Ga vibrations they produced became so intense that Taehyun could feel them through his boots. His scanner showed dangerous levels of some kind of energy building up. "Captain, we need to leave," Taehyun shouted over the rising noise. "These energy readings are off the charts." Captain Lee nodded grimly. Back to the pod. Slow movements. No sudden actions. The team began to back away toward the landing pod. The Arethi moved closer, their bodies now glowing a deep, angry red. "They think we're a threat," said Jiwoo, desperately trying to fix the translator. Something in our message must have been misunderstood. Suddenly, one of the crystal formations near them shattered with a sound like breaking glass. Sharp fragments flew through the air. "Run!" shouted Captain Lee. The team sprinted for the landing pod. Taehyun felt something sharp hit his leg. He stumbled but kept running. As they reached the pod, he looked back and saw dozens more Arethi appearing from the crystal forest. In the chaos of everyone scrambling into the pod, Taehyun lost his footing on the ramp. He fell, sliding down onto the strange surface of Erythea. The pod door began to close automatically. "Wait!" he shouted, trying to get up. But his injured leg gave way beneath him. Through the narrowing gap of the closing door, he saw Captain Lee's shocked face. "We'll come back for you," the captain shouted as the door sealed shut. The pod's engines fired up, sending waves of heat across the clearing. The Arethi scattered from the blast. Taehyun dragged himself behind one of the unbroken crystal formations, hoping to hide from both the heat and the aliens. As the pod rose into the sky, Taehyun felt a wave of dizziness. His leg was bleeding where the crystal fragment had cut through his suit. He pulled out his medical kit and quickly sealed the tear with emergency patches. The Arethi were still in the clearing, their bodies now pulsing with slower, deeper colors. They seemed to be communicating with each other. Would they search for him? What would they do if they found him? Taehyun checked his suit's systems. The communication link with the horizon was dead, likely blocked by the same energy field that had fried the translator. His oxygen supply was good, but he had only 3 days of food rations. Not enough time for a rescue mission to be organized and return. In the distance, one Arethi separated from the others. It moved away from the group, heading in Taehyun's direction. Its colors were different from the others, cooler blues and purples instead of angry reds. Taehyun held his breath as the Arethi stopped just meters away from his hiding place. Unlike the others, this one seemed smaller, its movements less certain. For a long moment, neither moved. Then the Arethi turned away, following the edge of the crystal forest rather than rejoining its group. Taehyun let out his breath slowly. He was alone on an alien planet with limited supplies, an injured leg, and no way to communicate with his ship. And somewhere out there, a curious Arethi was wandering alone, just like him. Night was falling on Erythea. The crystal formations began to glow with a soft inner light. Taehyun needed to find better shelter before the temperature dropped further. Gritting his teeth against the pain in his leg, he began to move deeper into the crystal forest, away from the clearing where the Arethi gathered. He would survive. He had to. The first human on Erythea was now alone in a world that had already decided humans were the enemy. 3 days had passed since the failed first contact. Taehyun limped through the crystal forest, his injured leg healing slowly. His food supplies were almost gone. He had 1 protein bar left, carefully wrapped and stored in his pocket. The last piece of earth he had with him. The crystal formations grew taller as he moved deeper into the forest. They hummed softly, creating a strange music that filled the air. During the day, they reflected the sunlight in dazzling patterns. Night, They glowed with a gentle blue light that made it possible to see without using his suit's lamp. Taehyun checked his scanner again. The signal from the horizon was still blocked. Either the ship had left orbit or something in the planet's atmosphere was interfering with communications. Neither option gave him much hope. Just keep moving, he told himself. Find water. Find shelter. His suit recycled his body's moisture, providing enough water to survive. But the system was designed for short missions, not long-term survival. It would fail eventually. As the second sun of Erythea began to set, the temperature dropped quickly. Taehyun needed to find shelter for the night. Ahead, he saw a dark opening at the base of a large crystal formation. It looked like a cave. "Please, be empty," he whispered as he approached the entrance. His scanner showed no large life forms inside. Just to be safe, he picked up a broken crystal shard to use as a weapon. The cave entrance was low, forcing him to duck as he entered. Inside, the cave opened into a larger space. Unlike the outside forest, the crystals here grew in strange, curved shapes. They seemed to point inward, toward the center of the cave, and they glowed with a softer, warmer light than those outside. Taehyun moved deeper into the cave, drawn by the unusual formation. In the center was a clear pool of liquid. He tested it with his scanner. Not water, but not harmful either. Some kind of mineral solution. More interesting were the small crystal formations floating in the pool. They were different from the larger crystals. These were more regular in shape, with smoother surfaces. Fascinating, Taehyun said, forgetting his hunger and pain for a moment. This was why he had become a xenobiologist, to discover new life forms, new ways that life could exist. He carefully took samples of the liquid and made detailed scans of the floating crystals. They showed signs of organized structure, similar to living cells. Could these be baby Erythea, or some other life form? Tired from his long walk, Taehyun settled against the cave wall as far from the pool as possible. He didn't want to disturb whatever was growing there. He ate a tiny portion of his protein bar, just enough to keep hunger, away, and closed his eyes. Hours later, Taehyun woke to a strange sound, a soft scraping like stone moving against stone. He opened his eyes but stayed perfectly still. In the dim glow of the cave crystals, he saw a figure enter. It moved differently from the Erythea he had seen before. This one seemed to flow across the ground, its crystal body shifting and reforming with each movement. Its colors were cooler blues and purples, just like the lone Erythea he had seen after the landing. The Erythea moved to the edge of the pool. It extended what looked like a limb and touched the surface of the liquid. The floating crystals responded, moving toward the touch. Light passed between them and the larger Erythea, pulses of color that seemed to form patterns. Taehyun realized he was witnessing something important, some kind of communication or care ritual. He wished his translator had not been destroyed. Without it, he had no way to understand what was happening. The Erythea finished whatever it was doing and turned to leave. As it moved, its light caught on Taehyun's suit, reflecting back. The Erythea froze. It had seen him. Taehyun slowly raised his hands to show he had no weapons. "I mean no harm," he said, knowing the alien couldn't understand his words, but hoping. His tone and body language might help. The Erythea's body flashed with rapid colors. It moved backward toward the cave entrance. Taehyun stayed where he was, trying to appear as non-threatening as possible. Then, from outside the cave came a loud roar. The Erythea stopped moving. The colors in its body dimmed as if it was trying to hide. Another roar, closer this time. Taehyun had not encountered any of Erythea's wildlife yet, but the sound suggested something big and probably dangerous. The Erythea seemed caught between two threats, the unknown human inside the cave and whatever was outside. It pressed itself against the cave wall, almost disappearing against the similar crystals. Heavy footsteps approached the cave entrance. Taehyun could see a large shadow now. The creature outside was massive, with multiple limbs that ended in sharp points. It sniffed at the cave entrance, then began to squeeze its body through the opening. Taehyun looked around for a way out, but there was only one entrance. They were trapped. The predator forced its way into the cave. It had a long body covered, in dark plates. Its 6 legs ended in crystal-like claws that clicked against the cave floor. Its head had no eyes that Taehyun could see, but it had several long feelers that waved in the air, sensing its surroundings. The predator turned toward the Arethi, whose body was now pulsing with rapid, panicked colors. The creature seemed drawn to the light. Without thinking, Taehyun shouted and waved his arms. "Hey, over here!" The predator turned its head toward him, its feelers stretched in his direction. It forgot about the Arethi and began moving toward Taehyun. "Bad idea," Taehyun muttered to himself. He backed up until he hit the cave wall. Nowhere left to go. The predator closed in. Up close, Taehyun could see rows of crystal teeth in its mouth, sharp enough to cut through his suit easily. Just as the creature lunged, there was a bright flash of light. The Arethi had moved between Taehyun and the predator. It was glowing, so brightly that Taehyun had to shield his eyes. The predator recoiled from the light but then attacked again. This time it struck the Arethi with one of its clawed legs. There was a horrible sound like breaking glass. The Arethi's body cracked. Pieces of its crystal structure fell to the ground. Still, it stayed between the human and the predator, pulsing. With light, Taehyun grabbed his crystal shard and rushed forward. He drove the makeshift weapon into what he hoped was a vulnerable spot between the predator's plates. The creature shrieked and thrashed. Its leg struck Taehyun, sending him flying against the cave wall. Pain exploded in his chest, probably a broken rib. The predator turned back to the Arethi, which was now dimming, its light growing weaker. The creature struck again, breaking off more pieces of the Arethi's body. Desperate, Taehyun pulled out his emergency flare. It was meant for signaling rescue, but now it might save their lives. He activated it, and a blindingly bright light filled the cave. The predator screamed, a high-pitched sound that hurt Taehyun's ears. It backed away from the light, then turned and fled from the cave, knocking loose crystals from the walls in its hurry. When the flare died down, Taehyun saw the Arethi lying on the cave floor. Its once beautiful crystal body was shattered in many places. The light within it flickered weakly. Taehyun crawled over to it, ignoring his own pain. "You saved my life," he said softly. "Why did you do that?" The Arethi could not answer in words. Its light pulsed once, then grew dimmer. Taehyun didn't know if the Arethi was dying or just badly injured. He didn't know how to help a life form so different from anything he had studied before. But he knew he had to try. As the lone human, and the damaged Arethi lay in the sacred cave, surrounded by the floating crystal formations in the pool, Taehyun made a promise. "I'll help you," he said. "Somehow I'll find a way." Outside, the 3 moons of Erythea rose over the crystal forest, casting strange shadows through the alien landscape. In a small cave, 2 very different beings from distant worlds faced their survival together. Morning light filtered into the cave, casting rainbow patterns on the walls. Taehyun woke with a sharp pain in his ribs. The events of the previous night came rushing back. The predator, the fight, and the injured Arethi. He looked over to where the crystalline being lay. In the daylight, the damage looked even worse. Large cracks ran through its body, and several pieces had broken off completely. The light inside it was very dim now, pulsing slowly like a weak heartbeat. Taehyun moved closer, wincing at the pain in his side. His medical scanner confirmed what he already knew: 2 broken ribs. Nothing fatal, but painful. He injected a small dose of painkillers from his medical kit. He turned his scanner toward the Arethi. The readings were hard to interpret. This life form was so different from anything in the scanner's database. But one thing was clear: the energy readings were very low and getting lower. "You're dying," Taehyun said softly. He remembered his xenobiology training. The Arethi were crystalline life forms that absorbed energy from their environment. They needed light and certain minerals to survive, just as humans needed food and water. But this cave was deep underground, far from the direct sunlight that the Arethi normally used for energy. And the injured one seemed unable to move back to the surface. Taehyun looked at the pool in the center of the cave. The small crystal formations still floated there, undamaged by the night's events. They seemed to absorb something from the liquid. They floated in. He carefully collected some of the liquid in a sample container. His scanner analyzed it. The liquid was rich in rare minerals and had unusual energy properties. It seemed to be a kind of food source for the young crystal formations. But would it help an adult Erethi? Taehyun wondered. He took some of the liquid and moved back to the injured alien. Carefully, he poured a few drops onto one of the cracked sections. Nothing happened. He tried again, placing the liquid on different parts of the crystal body. Still no response. Taehyun sat back, frustrated. He didn't know how to help this creature that had saved his life. His own situation wasn't much better. His food was almost gone. He had 1/2 of a protein bar left. It would not last long. The protein bar. Taehyun took it out and looked at it. It was specially designed for space missions, packed with nutrients, proteins, and minerals that humans needed to survive. His last real food. An idea formed in his mind. It was probably stupid. The chances of alien biology being compatible with human food were almost zero. But he had to try something. Taehyun broke the protein bar in half. He would save 1/2 for himself. The other half he crushed into small pieces and mixed with some of the pool liquid in a container. Then he took his portable light, the one he used for detailed specimen examination, and adjusted it to emit different frequencies of light. He placed the mixture of protein bar and pool liquid next to the damaged Erethi. Then he shone the light on it, cycling through different frequencies. "Come on," he whispered. "There has to be a way for you to absorb this." For a long time, nothing happened. Taehyun continued to change the light frequency, hoping to find one that would help the Erethi process the nutrients. After what seemed like hours, he noticed something. When he used a specific frequency of ultraviolet light, the liquid mixture seemed to change. It became slightly luminous, giving off a faint glow. The Erethi's body responded with a weak pulse of light, matching the frequency of the glowing mixture. "That's it," Taehyun said. He adjusted his light to maintain that exact frequency and continued to shine it on the mixture. Slowly, the liquid began to be absorbed. It didn't flow like water into the crystal. Instead, it seemed to dissolve and then reappear within the crystal structure of the Erethi. The light inside the alien grew slightly stronger. The smallest cracks in its body began to seal themselves, crystal growing to fill the gaps. Taehyun laughed with relief. It was working. The combination of the pool liquid, the protein bar nutrients, and the specific light frequency was providing energy the Erethi could use to heal. The process was slow. Taehyun maintained the light for hours, stopping only when his device needed to recharge using his suit's power cells. During these breaks, he examined the small crystal formations in the pool more carefully. They were definitely young Erethi. Baby ones, perhaps. This cave must be some kind of nursery or growing place for them. That would explain why the injured Erethi had come here and why it had protected the cave so fiercely. By nightfall, the Erethi's condition had improved noticeably. Many of the small cracks had healed completely. The larger breaks were still there, but the edges had smoothed. The light inside it pulsed stronger and more regularly. Taehyun was exhausted. His own body needed rest to heal. He ate the remaining half of his protein bar in tiny bites, making it last as long as possible. Tomorrow he would have no food left, but at least the Erethi would survive. As he prepared to sleep, the Erethi moved for the first time since the attack. It was a small movement, just a slight repositioning of its crystal limbs, but it was progress. "You're getting better," Taehyun said. "That's good." The Erethi's light pulsed in response. Taehyun couldn't tell if it understood his words, but it seemed to react to his voice. He settled down against the cave wall, trying to find a position that didn't hurt his ribs too much. Just as he was about to fall asleep, he noticed the Erethi doing something strange. It was directing pulses of light toward the pool. The young crystal formations responded, their own lights pulsing in patterns that seemed to match. They were communicating. Taehyun watched, fascinated, as the complex patterns of light continued. This was exactly the kind of discovery he had dreamed of making as a xenobiologist. A new form of communication. A new way for life to interact. If only he could understand it. The next morning, Tae-hyun woke to find the Erythi had moved closer. To him. It now sat just an arm's length away, its crystal body casting prism patterns across his suit as the dawn light hit it. The damage was still visible, but much reduced. The light inside it was almost back to normal brightness. The healing mixture Tae-hyun had created was gone, completely absorbed. "You look better today," Tae-hyun said, sitting up carefully. The Erythi extended what appeared to be a limb toward him. At the end of it was a small crystal, broken off from its own body. It placed the crystal in front of Tae-hyun. He picked it up curiously. It was warm to the touch, and seemed to pulse slightly with the same light as the Erythi. "A gift?" he asked. Though he knew the alien couldn't understand, the Erythi's body flashed with colors. It reached out again, this time touching Tae-hyun's hand lightly. The touch sent a strange tingling sensation up his arm. For a brief moment, Tae-hyun felt something. Not words exactly, but a feeling. Gratitude. The sensation faded quickly, but it left him stunned. "You can communicate with touch," he said, amazed. "And you're trying to thank me." The Erythi's lights pulsed once, strongly. It seemed like confirmation. Tae-hyun carefully placed the crystal in his sample case. His first real connection with an alien life form. Not just observation or study, but actual communication. And it had started with the simple act of sharing, his last food. As his stomach growled with hunger, Tae-hyun smiled. He had no more food, his ribs were broken, and he was still stranded on an alien planet. But he had made a breakthrough that no human had achieved before. He had connected with a truly alien mind. The Erythi moved to the edge of the pool, then looked back at Tae-hyun. It seemed to be inviting him to follow. "You want to show me something?" Tae-hyun asked. He stood up slowly, favoring his injured side. "Lead the way." Together, the human and the Erythi moved deeper into the cave, toward a passage Tae-hyun hadn't noticed before. A passage that glowed with a strange, inviting light. The passage led deeper underground. Tae-hyun followed the Erythi carefully, trying to ignore the hunger that gnawed at his stomach. His scanner showed they were moving down at a steady angle, perhaps 50 meters below the surface now. The walls of the passage were lined with crystals that glowed with a soft blue light. They provided just enough illumination to see by. Unlike the crystals in the forest above, these seemed older. Their surfaces were smoother, worn by time. "Where are we going?" Tae-hyun asked, though he knew the Erythi couldn't understand his words. The alien moved steadily forward. Its crystal body had healed remarkably since consuming the mixture of protein bar and pool liquid. There were still cracks in some places, but the light inside it was strong and stable. After what seemed like an hour of walking, the passage opened into a large chamber. Tae-hyun stopped at the entrance, amazed by what he saw. The chamber was enormous, at least 100 meters across. The ceiling rose high above them, covered in hanging crystal formations that looked like frozen waterfalls. The floor sloped down to a central area where a large pool of the same mineral liquid they had seen in the upper cave spread out. But the most impressive sight was the crystal formations that rose from the floor around the pool. They were huge, complex structures that twisted and curved in impossible ways. And they glowed with a rainbow of colors that shifted and changed as Tae-hyun watched. "Incredible," he whispered. The Erythi moved forward, gliding across the smooth floor toward the central pool. Tae-hyun followed slowly, his eyes trying to take in everything at once. His xenobiologist's mind was racing, trying to understand what this place might be. As they approached the pool, Tae-hyun noticed something strange. The larger crystal formations seemed to be pulsing with light and patterns, similar to the way the Erythi communicated. Were they alive too? Or were they some kind of technology? The Erythi stopped at the edge of the pool and turned to Tae-hyun. It gestured with a limb, seeming to invite him to come closer. Tae-hyun approached cautiously. The liquid in the pool was clearer than in the upper cave. It seemed to glow from within, giving off a soft white light. The Erythi's body flashed with colors, It reached out and touched Taehyun's hand, just as it had done before. The same tingling sensation ran up his arm, but stronger this time. Images flashed through Taehyun's mind. Not clear pictures, but impressions. Heat, light, a sense of fading. Danger. The images were accompanied by emotions, fear, determination, hope. When the connection broke, Taehyun staggered back, overwhelmed. "You're trying to communicate," he said. "You're showing me something important." The Arethi dipped one of its limbs into the pool. The liquid began to glow brighter where it touched. Patterns of light spread across the surface, forming shapes that reminded Taehyun of star maps. He took out his scanner and began recording everything. The patterns were too complex for him to understand, but perhaps the scientist on the horizon could make sense of them if he ever made it back. The Arethi removed its limb from the pool and the patterns faded. It turned to Taehyun and flashed, its lights in a sequence he was beginning to recognize as a call for attention. Then it did something unexpected. It broke off a small piece of its own body, a crystal about the size of Taehyun's thumb. It handed the piece to him. Taehyun took it carefully. The crystal was warm and seemed to pulse with the same light as the Arethi. "What do you want me to do with this?" he asked. The Arethi pointed to the pool, then to Taehyun's head. Understanding dawned. "You want me to put this in the pool and connect with it somehow?" The Arethi's body flashed what Taehyun was beginning to recognize as an affirmative pattern. Taehyun hesitated. He had no idea what would happen if he did this. It could be dangerous, but he had come to trust this Arethi, who had saved his life, and was now trying so hard to communicate with him. "All right," he said. "I hope this works." He knelt by the edge of the pool and placed the crystal piece on the surface of the liquid. It floated, spinning slowly. The liquid around it began to glow brighter. Taehyun looked at the Arethi, who made a gesture that seemed to say, "Go ahead." Taking a deep breath, Taehyun reached out and placed his hand on the floating crystal. The world exploded into light and sensation. Taehyun felt like he was falling and flying at the same time. Images, sounds, feelings rushed through his mind, too fast to grasp. Then everything steadied. He found himself still kneeling by the pool, but now he could hear a voice in his mind. Not words exactly, but concepts that his brain was translating into understanding. "You hear now?" the voice said. "You understand?" "Yes," Taehyun said aloud, amazed. "I understand you. I am Nari," the voice continued. "I watch young ones grow. I find you different, not like stories say." "I'm Taehyun," he replied. "I'm a human from Earth. I came with others to meet your people, but something went wrong." "Others fear different," Nari explained. "Think humans take energy, kill planet." "Take energy? Kill the planet?" Taehyun was confused. "We didn't come to harm anyone or take anything. We wanted to learn, to share knowledge." Nari's crystal body pulsed with colors that now seemed to match the emotions in her thoughts. Planet core cooling, energy fading. Arethi need energy to live. Elders think humans will take remaining energy. Understanding dawned on Taehyun. The Arethi believed humans were some kind of resource competitors or energy vampires who would accelerate the death of their planet. "That's why they attacked us," he said. "It was a misunderstanding. We came to offer friendship, not to take anything." "I know now." Nari's thoughts came. "You share food when starving. You help heal, not take, give." The connection through the crystal was becoming clearer. Taehyun could sense more of Nari's thoughts and memories now. She was young for an Arethi, still learning. She had been assigned to watch over the nursery caves where new Arethi grew. When she saw the humans arrive, she had been curious rather than fearful. That curiosity had led her to follow Taehyun after he was stranded. "Your planet is dying?" Taehyun asked. "The core is cooling?" "Yes. Many years, but ending comes. Energy fields weaken. Soon no new ones born." Taehyun thought quickly. This explained why the Arethi had been so hostile. They were facing extinction, and saw humans as a new threat. "Nari, Humans might be able to help, he said. We have technology that could possibly restore energy to your planet's core. We've done similar things on other worlds. Hope flashed through their connection. True, humans help Arithi. If I can contact my ship and explain what happened, yes. But my communicator doesn't work here. Something blocks the signal. Crystal, mountains block signals, Nari explained. Must go to high place, away from mountains. Taehyun suddenly felt dizzy. The connection was taking a toll on his already weakened body. He hadn't eaten in over a day, and his injuries were still healing. Nari sensed his distress. You weak. Need energy like I did. She broke the connection by moving the crystal away from his hand. Taehyun gasped as the mental link severed. Need go surface, Nari said, now using light patterns that Taehyun could somehow understand better than before. You rest first, then signal ship. Taehyun nodded, fighting off a wave of exhaustion. Yes, rest first. Then we'll try to contact the horizon. He leaned back against one of the crystal formations, suddenly too tired to move. The communication had taken more out of him than he realized. Sleep, Nari's lights flashed. I watch. As Taehyun drifted into an exhausted sleep, his last thought was about the incredible breakthrough they had achieved. Not just contact, but true communication with an alien species, and it had all started with the simple act of sharing a protein bar. In his dreams, he saw Earth and Erythea orbiting the same sun, their peoples working together, learning from each other. It was the future he had always hoped for as a xenobiologist. A future that might still be possible if they could reach the horizon in time. Taehyun woke to the gentle touch of crystal against his hand. Nari stood over him, her body glowing with urgent colors. Must go. Her lights pulsed in patterns he could now understand. Day ending soon. Taehyun stood up shakily. He had slept for hours, but hunger made him weak. His ribs still ached, though the pain was less sharp now. I'm ready, he said. Lead the way. They left the underground chamber and followed a different passage than the one they had entered through. This one sloped upward, climbing toward the surface. As they walked, Nari explained more about the Erythi and their world using the simple light language they had developed. Erythea had once been full of energy and life. The Erythi had built a peaceful civilization based on harmony with their world. But over many generations, the planet's core had begun to cool. The energy fields that the Erythi depended on grew weaker. Fewer young ones were born each cycle. The elders predicted that within a few generations, no new Erythi would be born at all. That's why they feared us, Taehyun said. They thought we would take even more energy from the planet. Yes, Nari pulsed. Elders very afraid, see humans as danger, not want to listen. But you were different. You were curious about us. Nari's color shifted to what Taehyun now recognized as a sign of agreement. I different. Can sense other ways, not just energy patterns. Elders call me wrong-made. Taehyun felt a surge of sympathy. Nari was an outcast among her own people because she was different, because she could perceive and understand things they could not. You're not wrong-made, he said firmly. You're special. Without you, we would never have been able to communicate. You built a bridge between our species. Nari's colors brightened at his words. They continued climbing and eventually reached a tunnel that led to the surface. The light of the setting suns greeted them as they emerged. They were on the slope of one of the taller crystal formations, far from where Taehyun had first landed. Below them stretched the crystal forest, glittering in the sunset. In the distance, Taehyun could see a larger structure rising above the forest. It looked like a city made of crystal, with towers and bridges connecting them. Erythi home place, Nari explained, seeing where he was looking. Where elders meet. Where many Erythi live. It's beautiful, Taehyun said. High point there. Nari pointed to the peak of the crystal formation they stood on. Can signal ship from there. They began to climb higher. The slope was steep, and Taehyun had to use his hands to keep his balance on the smooth crystal surface. Nari moved more easily, her body seeming to flow over the difficult sections. By the time they reached the peak, The first of Erythea's 3 moons was rising. Taehyun looked up at the night sky, searching for any sign of the horizon. If the ship had left orbit, all his efforts would be for nothing. He activated his communicator and sent out the emergency signal. For a long minute, there was no response. Then a crackle of static and a voice came through. "Taehyun, is that you? This is Captain Lee. We've been searching for you for days." Relief flooded through him. "Captain, yes, it's me. I'm alive and I need immediate pickup. But there's something else, something important." Quickly, Taehyun explained what he had learned about the Erythi, their dying planet, and the misunderstanding that had led to the failed first contact. "The Erythi aren't hostile," he concluded. "They're desperate. Their world is dying, and they thought we came to take what little energy they have left. But we can help them, Captain. With our technology, we might be able to restore their planet's core energy." There was a long pause. Then Captain Lee spoke again. "You're sure about this? The Erythi will accept our help now?" "Not all of them," Taehyun admitted, looking at Nari. "But I have a friend here who can help us convince them." "We've been maintaining orbit, hoping to find you," Captain Lee said. "We can send a landing pod to your location in 2 hours. Will you be safe until then?" "Yes, but we need to prepare the Erythi for your arrival. We can't have another misunderstanding." "Agreed. We'll come unarmed, with only scientific equipment. And Taehyun, it's good to hear your voice." The communication ended. Taehyun turned to Nari, who had been watching him with her glowing body cycling through curious colors. "They're coming to help," he told her. "But we need to convince your elders that humans are friends, not enemies." Nari's colors dimmed. "Elders not listen to wrong maid." "Then we'll make them listen," Taehyun said firmly. "Show me the way to your city." The journey to the Crystal City took most of the 2 hours. Taehyun was exhausted and hungry, but determination kept him moving. Nari led him along paths that avoided the more populated areas, knowing that other Erythi might attack the human on site. As they approached the city, Taehyun could see that it was even more beautiful up close. The crystal towers rose hundreds of meters into the sky, connected by delicate bridges that seemed to float on air. Light pulsed through the structures in complex patterns, like the heartbeat of a living thing. "Elder Meeting Place," Nari pointed to a large circular structure at the center of the city. "All important Erythi there now, deciding things." "That's where we need to go," Taehyun said. "Dangerous," Nari warned. "They hurt you. Maybe hurt me too." Taehyun paused, considering. He couldn't ask Nari to risk herself. But then he thought of the dying planet, of the young crystal formations in the nursery caves, of the future that might never happen if they didn't act. "We have to try," he said, "for both our peoples." Nari's colors shifted through a series of patterns before settling on a bright, determined blue. "Yes, we try." They entered the city through a less used path. A few Erythi saw them and flashed alarm patterns, but none approached. Word spread quickly that a human was in the city, moving toward the Elder Meeting Place. By the time they reached the central structure, a crowd of Erythi had gathered. Their crystal bodies pulsed with angry, fearful colors. Taehyun could feel their hostility like a physical force. The entrance to the Elder Meeting Place was blocked by larger Erythi, their bodies structured in ways that reminded Taehyun of armor. Guards of some kind. Nari stepped forward. Her body flashed with formal greeting patterns, which the guards returned reluctantly. "Need see elders." Nari's lights pulsed. "Important message." The guards' colors showed denial. "Wrong maid, not welcome. Human enemy." Taehyun stepped forward. "I am not your enemy," he said clearly, hoping his tone would convey what his words could not. "I come to help." The guards did not move. The crowd behind them grew larger, their collective light creating a dazzling, threatening display. Then from above them came the sound of engines. The landing pod from the horizon was approaching, right on schedule. The Erythi looked up, their colors flashing with alarm. "No time," Nari said to Taehyun. Her body began to glow more intensely than he had ever seen. "I show them." Before Taehyun could react, Nari placed her crystal limbs against the guards. A wave of light passed from her body into theirs. The guards stiffened, then stepped aside. Nari rushed forward, pulling Taehyun with her. They entered the elder meeting place, a vast circular chamber filled with the oldest, largest Irithi Taehyun had seen. Their crystal bodies were complex and ornate, showing signs of great age. The elders rose in alarm as the human and the outcast entered their sacred chamber. Their lights flashed with patterns of outrage and command. "Stop!" they pulsed. "Remove outsiders!" Nari moved to the center of the chamber. Her body began to glow with an intense white light that filled the room. Then, instead of simple light patterns, she began to project images. Taehyun saw himself as if through Nari's eyes, stumbling through the crystal forest. He saw their first meeting in the cave, the attack of the predator, Nari's injury. And then, clear and unmistakable, he saw himself breaking his last protein bar and sharing half with the injured Irithi. The images continued, showing their journey, underground, the communication breakthrough, and finally, Taehyun's call to the horizon, offering to help save the dying planet. When the images ended, there was silence. The elders' colors pulsed slowly as they communicated among themselves. Outside, the landing pod touched down. Taehyun's communicator crackled with Captain Lee's voice. "Taehyun, we've landed. What's your status?" "Wait there, Captain," Taehyun replied. "We're talking to the Irithi leaders now." The oldest of the elders moved forward. Its crystal body was enormous and complex, shaped by countless years of growth. It extended a limb toward Taehyun. Understanding what was needed, Taehyun reached out and touched the offered limb. A connection formed, stronger than what he had experienced with Nari. "You would help those who tried to harm you?" The elder's thoughts came clear and deep. "Yes," Taehyun answered simply. "Because that's what humans do at our best, we help." The elder was silent for a long moment, then, "Show us,"